a lot of maturity and process, which you guys are pretty big on, comes into the conversation, especially around the onboarding of a new PSA, where people are discussing about where they want to go, where are they, where they want to be, service management, contracts, all this stuff. Standardisation pops up probably number one. They've got to a point where they want to put a flag in the ground, wipe the slate clean, start again fresh, and they want to sort of break fix and standardising their contracts. And the migration on some teams who haven't made that decision, there was a cost in doing so because they were trying to migrate 500 to 1,000 clients and they all had different contracts. How do you migrate that? It is
that standard catalogue of delivery. Scale Up, the podcast for driving growth in your MSP, delivered by industry experts. Hi everyone, welcome back to Scale Up Podcast. Today I'm joined with Mick Patel and Tim BW, who owns the commercial seat within Halo. Today we're going to talk about sales, all the way from the start of the journey, finding a prospect, all the way to clearing that journey and actually gaining a customer, and looking at how that is delivered within a mature MSP.
Right. So, Miss and Darren, great for you to be at Halo House. Lovely, isn't she?
I mean, some people would think it's his show that he's basically introducing.
I'm just taking over. I'm a special guest taking over, and here we are. But yeah, I mean, it's I guess today we're just digging into what it takes to take a technical MSP and make him into a sales mastermind. Is that how you put it, Darren?
Yeah, definitely. I think what we see is like 90% of the MSPs are principal-led sales. So you're talking about a technical person that's an introvert, that hasn't got the energy, hasn't got, they've got the passion about the business, but how do they explore that? How do they actually talk about it when they need to?
Sure. So I think there's always a journey, isn't there? When a small MSP, as a technical founder, would want to, needs to do everything, don't they, in a business? And on the commercial side, needs to find a way to sell. And I've always seen, because I've worked with probably a few thousand MSPs at this stage, and it's always from like a point of expertise I see them selling, where they're a technical founder. They won't have the same commercial tendencies of following up and all the structure that goes along with, following a sales cycle and taking it from open to close. But they'll, basically go into a scenario knowing the answer. And same way that when you get a doctor's appointment, when you walk into like a room and someone gets presented as the doctor, you listen to their opinion. Very much the same way as selling. And yeah, basically that's probably how, I'm not sure if you've seen any different, you two, from your experience, but that's how I've seen MSP, especially from the small end of the scale, initially get started.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's that passion, it's that energy, and when I first met you, Tim, the passion and energy that you had that day to today.
Which day was this?
I hear you talk about Halo and the passion of Halo. I think that's what we need to capture. How do owners do that? How do you bring across that passion when you're talking in a structured way to equal a sale at the end when the person doesn't know what you're talking about?
I think that's interesting. I mean, the first thing is I'm surprised you'd be able to get an appointment at the NHS. So that's probably not the right analogy for this podcast. But the second thing, I was speaking to someone recently and they said they went to like a meetup for IT owners. And she came back and she was like, oh my God, all these IT owners are doing this really cool thing and automating this thing with technology. We don't really have anyone who's doing that. And I was like, yeah, but that's what they love. That's where their passion is, in technology, in changing things, playing with things, the nuts and bolts of doing things. And it's difficult to apply that passion sometimes into something like sales because they're not driven by that. So I think ultimately it's down to what does that business owner want to get to, where do they want to get to, and how are they going to do it? That's the question they kind of need to ask in their head to enable them to maybe get some of that passion behind growing revenue.
Yeah, where do they spend the time? Because typically, like you say, they're going to spend the time on the technical, the nuts and bolts, where they need to be spending the time. Not everyone wants to grow, but if they want to grow, they've got to spend that time in being uncomfortable in that sales journey.
Yeah, I've worked with teams who, they're not thinking about the end goal. They're always firefighting initially, and they play to their strengths, which is typically technical. I think those are the ones that struggle to scale the most, I'd probably say. Whereas you're saying, you talk a lot about the idea of having, thinking about being intentional about how you grow, which I think is a great point. And I think it's just focusing, as we have a journey here as well, and everything is molded around that, where the end goal would be. So we make decisions intentionally, right or wrong, to basically fit that end vision. So I've worked with a really clever MSP. I'll shout him out. It's I think it was Jimmy Puckett from Spinning. Very clever guy. Wears a Hawaiian shirt every time you see him. And he went through a period last year where he got rid of about a good chunk, I can't remember the actual numbers, but he got rid of like a good majority, I think it was, of his entire customers because they weren't profitable. Very mad thing to do. Imagine waking up in the morning and your boss is wanting to sack all your clients. You'd be like, okay. But if wanted to focus on the ones that were profitable, that committed to his stack and that weren't break fix and stuff like this. And it's been his most profitable year. The workload's gone down. They've been easier to manage, been way more profitable, and his clients have just been way more successful. So I think that's a especially when we talk, when I'm discussing PSA and business management generally with MSPs, a lot of maturity and process, which you guys are pretty big on, comes into the conversation, especially around the onboarding of a new PSA. Where people are discussing about where they want to go, where are they, where they want to be, service management, contracts, all this stuff. Standardization pops up, probably number one. They've got to a point where they want to put a flag in the ground, wipe the slate clean, start again fresh, and they want to, maybe they started on break fix because that's probably all they could get maybe back then, and that you don't say no when you need something. So it was definitely a yes. And then moving into sort of break fix and standardizing their clauses and contracts, and because the migration on some teams who haven't made that decision, there was a cost in doing so because they were trying to migrate 500 to 1,000 clients and they all had different contracts. How do you migrate that? It is
that standard catalogue of delivery.
So let's talk a bit about sales process. You said that's important, right? For any sales team, you've seen a lot of MSPs. Let's talk about, not the name of the MSP, but let's talk about a really bad sales process you've seen in the past. Sure. And open question to both of you and what it looks like.
What's a bad sales process? I guess it's...
I think when you've got a principal that hasn't actually built that standard catalogue, so what they're doing is they're basically putting a fix into anything that they hear. So anything that they hear on the prospect journey, they're going to say yes to.
Sure.
And so then what they've got then is multiple clients that look completely different that they've sold to, and no one really knows what they're selling. So what you've got is a principal that's got all the levers and all the authority to do whatever he wants, and he basically sells whatever it is. But then what you've got is such a dysfunctional operations and probably a low profit because of that.
Sure. I mean, you're basically on the money there. It's people who haven't got a menu of stuff they can sell, which matches their clients are selling to, I guess is what it boils down to. It's a match fit. And I think it's, leading into what we're talking about today, it's where, people will start a conversation or they'll find a way to generate leads, whether that be through, SEO or pay-per-click or, Google reviews, whatever it is, however they find their market, whether it be from like a meeting in person or even just door knocking, wherever it is. None of that doesn't typically happen. It will be inbound. I mean, that's a good question to you probably, Mick, because you've probably been there since the very guts have started, right?
So basically this has been a round robin question coming back to me.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
So
I'm happy for it. So let's take it step by step. So let's say, for example, we've got somebody who's made an inquiry. So a really bad process I've seen in the past is someone makes an inquiry, no one gets back to them. So maybe 4 or 5 days later, they see the inquiry somehow, and they're like,
"Sure." I want to take it back from there. When
it's a bit late.
How did you generate your leads for like early doors? Because I'm not sure people really know your origin story and the grit you went through. You want to share a bit about that?
So I think in terms of our main lead generation, it was mainly all online, so all digital stuff. So a lot of it in the early days was like pay-per-click advertising.
What year is this?
This is like 2008 onwards. So we're spending, I think we've spent over the years when I was in business, just over £600,000 in pay-per-click advertising. So to the stage that I got so upset with some of the agencies that were using us, I became Google certified on how to do pay-per-click advertising. Not that I applied it much, but I just wanted to understand it. Spent a lot of money on that. We got a lot of leads from that. We then invested heavily in doing SEO.
So I want to drill into this because I know people want to know about it, I guess. what were you? So you basically tried an agency first. You thought they were rubbish. You focused on you brought the skills in house. You did it yourself. What were the phrases you were shooting for? Was it your local? Did you focus locally? Did you focus nationally? Was it beyond that?
So our main focus was always based in London. So we were looking for keywords like IT company London, etc. around London.
Yeah.
It soon became very, very competitive. So we're paying like £30 a click, £40 a click, £50 a click, and this is in like 2010, 11. £50 was a lot more money than that, right?
Yeah.
So £50 a click, but we would be able to convert them some way or other because the value of what that client would be for us over say 3 years or 5 years was worth it. So we were happy to spend £5,000, £10,000, even £15,000 per customer because we knew it would pay off long term. So that was pretty cool for us. And we then invested into SEO more than pay-per-click because we found that more and more people were getting smarter. Like you probably don't click on most of the paid ads in Google anymore because
Nope.
you know, you're like, well, it's not going to take me to the wrong place or whatever. So we focused on investing heavily in SEO and we're able to dominate that for most of our keywords from kind of 2015 onwards.
Nice.
So
I think you've got a great example there, though, of identifying some part of the sales journey, and then Mitt, as the owner, has spent a lot of time understanding that part of the journey himself, or building a team around him, which he did eventually. He built a team around him that understood that part of the journey.
Sure.
And I think that's what you see a lot missing from MSPs, is the fact that they say they have no net new sales, but when you ask them how much time they're putting into learning that part, it's zero.
Yeah, and that's such a key point because if you look at Halo, it's very similar to maybe how you started, how a lot of teams start. It's Paul learned, being technical, how to rank number one. I think it was in the UK for IT help desk software, something like that.
Yeah.
And it was all no pay. We do a lot of paid ads nowadays, but back then it was organic. We're talking like 2006, 7, 8, when this was starting to ramp up. But that's when we started to get traction for inbound leads using those methods. But I mean, in terms of your other activities in your funnel, were you doing outbound stuff? Were you doing mailers? Were you calling up?
I think in my early days we tried everything.
Yeah. You go door knocking?
We sent faxes. So the first ever
What's a fax,
activity,
Mitt?
exactly.
You're showing your age now.
Exactly. So the first thing we ever did, I think in 2003, our outbound marketing approach was to send 1,000 faxes. So we sent 1,000 faxes through like a fax machine. They could only probably send like 50 faxes at a time. So we had to batch them. That's how long ago this was. But out of 1,000 faxes, we got 0 leads. So that was pretty disappointing having to do that. But actually, 7 months later, someone had a problem with their server or something, and they had our fax, and they filed our fax in their filing cabinet.
I don't know what this is.
Yeah, this is going way back.
This is all
right?
different language to me
So
now.
they actually called from that, and that was our first big contract that we ever got. They sent a purchase order, which was, we were very young in business, didn't even understand what that was.
Sure.
But that was our first big client. The other outbound stuff we did, we sent 1,000 letters. So we were taking like black bag bins to the post office,
Poor postman Pat.
and then sending all these letters. I think we had a franking machine, so we don't know what that is.
I don't know what that is. No.
So I'm kind of showing my age a bit here, aren't I?
Yeah, I mean, you got great skin. It must be you need to share your moisturising routine, honestly.
Thank you.
Actually, it's a funny story. We've had this conversation before.
We have.
And what did you do? You sent me. I got a message from one of the team saying someone has sent you
some sun cream.
Yeah, where were we? We were drunk somewhere in London.
No, I think you were going to America, so I thought as your kind of your skin probably
Tequila sunrise.
Yeah, your skin probably burns slightly easier than most. I thought want to make sure you're protected. So
we were looking after you.
I think I've dealt with hundreds of partners. I don't think I've had anyone yet send me sun cream to my desk.
Yeah. And it wasn't a cheap sun cream. I mean,
I know it was the best.
But it was the only one that would Amazon Prime next day.
I shared it to my other half. So that's the one I use. So I've still got it in my bag. It's my bag right now. So
there you go.
My 60-year-old self.
Protection.
All about protection. Yeah. So
it's the morning show,
we'll have to edit
Darren.
that bit. So I haven't.
leave it in. Leave it in.
So we haven't kind of finished the story. So sending out outbound letters. We got one lead from that as well, but we sent 1,000 things. So I think the thing that I learned there is that you've got to keep on doing activity to actually get some form of return. The return may not happen straight away. It may happen in 6 months' time or 7 months' time, whatever it may be. But I think a lot of business owners, especially the technically minded ones, try something, doesn't work. I'm not going to do that again. Right?
Yeah.
And a lot of it's about how do you make something better?
Yeah.
So the things that you're doing now, how do you iterate them to make them better? What are the things that
But
you
it's
can
also the
change to make them
numbers.
better?
I mean, we've had a great conversation about quantity. So if you know that there's 5% of the SMEs out there that are looking for IT at any one time, you then send out 10 leaflets. It's just not a big enough number to trial it.
Agreed.
And that's what we see a lot. We see people sending out, let's say, 100 leaflets and then saying, oh, that doesn't work. But actually, you've got to send out bigger quantities over a bigger volume of time to actually make sure it's going to work, rather than just giving up at the first hurdle.
Absolutely. And I think there's a couple of stories I'd add here as well. One of them is actually one of the first outbound initiatives that Halo did is that we actually load up the NetHelp Desk software way back when onto 1,000 CDs and posted them out. We posted out letters. No, it was literally CDs, I think it was, if I recall correctly.
Oh, so he can't be that young then if
And
he's
then,
putting things on
CDs,
CDs.
yeah.
And then
I'm
aging horrendously.
CDs are those circular things, yeah?
Yeah. Anyway, and then basically, QuickFit, the garage chain, was our first ever customer. Wrote back and said, "Yeah, we want it. We have the invoice. I think it's framed somewhere."
Oh, QuickFit was the first customer. That's
First
pretty
ever
cool.
customer. I'm not sure if anyone's told you that. And it was like £100. It was perpetual license. We had them.
Was it a quick fit together?
Oh dear.
Just what I'd ask.
But no, it was
definitely have to edit that.
that one's going to be edited. But that was another funny initiative. Another stuff I've done in the past as well, because I'm pretty, I've started a couple companies, and probably there's a couple of techniques I use to get meetings. So probably the biggest, most successful one I managed to do was get a meeting with Netflix on some other stuff outside of Halo that I'd done historically. And what I had done was I used, this is years ago, probably not okay now, just as a caveat for you guys, but I ended up I got LinkedIn Sales Nav. I looked up the target demographic of the people I wanted looking to attract. At the time, it was production companies. I use a Chrome add-on, which all it does is just a scripting tool that will pull out elements of the HTML, so first name, last name, company name, to get the person and their title, pull it out into a CSV, and then basically push that through a tool called hunter.io, which allowed me to then append those to the correct email addresses. So I got all the right email addresses, popped it into the hunter.io campaign tool, and then sent out direct mail messages, campaign 4 in a row, and I did about 130,000 emails. And I managed to generate is about a 1 in 500 rate. So I generated a lot of leads that way. And that was a relatively, it was high technical knowledge, very low cost. And I was able to get in front of the biggest name in the industry at the time. And I went down there. The meeting was, the product was nowhere near mature for what they were looking to do, of course. But to get the meeting, I don't know how much you'd pay in terms of opportunity cost, probably at least 5 digits. But that's another way. Another way I've also seen as well, that if you do target certain technologies, like if you're an MSP and you want to, you've seen something which is outdated or something you feel is a vulnerability that you just have knowledge on, there's a couple of tools that I've seen. One of them is called Built With, which goes out and scans and crawls websites globally, and it allows you to identify technologies that companies are using, whether it be chatbots or website builders or elements or componentry, and it allows you to focus on that. And you can even timestamp it, and that's a really good way of using the right tools. And then the mailer itself, the actual copy, was very short and candid, because especially in the UK, we don't like being sold to. No one likes it. So, and even now, it's just nudges and being direct. It's like, hi there, saw you doing this. We're here, we do this. Might be of interest, let me know. Literally just super human, just normal about it. No bold text, no HTML, just an organic feeling email from another person who thinks they can help. I think it was always the best strategy that I found over the years. And that's something that I've, when I joined Halo, we had no, I wasn't a salesperson. I'd never done sales properly. It was just stuff that I thought I needed to do to make it happen, and so becoming that person is a movement, but knowing where to find the right tools out the gate straight away, I've always found is I would imagine it'd be way easier having someone present it to you instead of having to go and find it out on your own. I'm not sure if you guys have any thoughts on, how you got started as well in terms of getting your first clients.
Yeah. I mean, it's a journey, isn't it? And for me, it's about spending that time. You've got to spend the time learning some techniques, and then just over and over and over keep practicing them.
Sure.
And I wouldn't say I do any sort of sales. I would say I'm more sort of relationships. So it's more about
Sure, that's very
talking
important
to people and just nurturing people through a journey and hopefully getting them to the end result. But you are intentional of where you want to get them.
Sure.
So that is, I suppose, part of the sales journey.
Where did you find your first, not sure people know either. How did you start Scalable? Where was your first clients from? Did you meet them in nightclubs?
No, so Scalable was completely born out of demand. I probably did meet those people at nightclubs at some point in the journey.
I mean, if everyone doesn't know, Darren is a bit of a dark horse.
I thought you were going to say dancer then.
Definitely not. I've seen him after 2 drinks as well. He's a hell of a dancer. People call him snake hips.
Yeah, I think, where Scalable started was out demand. I had relationships with people that I'd built up over the years through peer groups and other places that I knew MSP owners. And that was basically demand. So people came to me and said, Darren, I know you can do this.
What year is this?
This was, 4 years ago?
Okay, wow.
So 4 years ago, people like Mitt was, can you help me to achieve X in my business? Because there's a place here. I want you to spend some time in it. And then it was just born out of demand from there. Push that forward. And then it was about getting out there and building relationships and building more relationships.
Sure.
And using those stories to present to other people.
So you basically you became part of the community, built up, positioned yourself as an expert within that community, and have people approach you organically.
Yeah. And my biggest thing is I'll tell everyone what I know. So I haven't got all the answers, but I'll tell you what I know and how I've gone about it and how we help other partners to achieve it.
Yep.
So I'll tell you all the answers that I've got, and then most people do nothing with that. Some people do a little bit with that, and then some people come to us and say, actually, can you do it for us? And that's the whole message I go with, really. So it's all about helping the community, being a big go-giver, and then in return, something comes back, which is all about the go-giver.
Yeah, I always feel that as well, where if you give yourself, especially in the MSP community, which is something quite special, that's how HaloPSA scaled. Just relying on that as word of mouth to get around. But the MSP community is something that you do give to, something that does come back. And it's always a bit of a leap of faith when you start sharing all your biggest secrets and how to make stuff happen.
Some people even now ask me, like, Darren, you've spent a long time building this material or building these assets and you're giving them away for nothing. But, there's a big thing there and it works, definitely. So we talked a lot about getting a lead and finding a lead. What about then? So now what? So
once you've got it, you mean.
So someone rings in. So one of the big failures that I see is someone rings in, they ring you main CLI number. That typically hits a help desk person. Typically, it may be a junior person. And what impression do they give? That's not the impression you want after you've blood, sweat, and tears trying to find this lead, and then it hits your service desk person.
What do you guys do at Halo? That'd be interesting to know. Like when you get a lead.
So we get. We're different. We're a software company.
So of course.
So we get trials started. So inbound trials. Apart from is the majority of our inbound leads. So people will start a trial because we put it out there, 30 days free trial.
What, it just flips on.
And I get an email. Someone started a trial. Hi there, can I help? You want to have a look at this together? Book a Calendly, onto a call, book a demo, have the demo. That's how we roll. But
so just step back a second. So you're saying that basically to set up a trial, they just have to put their email address in there, and that just automatically starts, or is there a phone call?
It's nothing that crazy. Every SaaS company does it. You go to the website, you click Start Trial, you fill out first name, last name, contact number, click on T&C, start the trial, and you get a 30-day click up. And someone will reach out. Not in a salesy way and be like, hi there, do you want, because especially, other SaaS tools out there are like Scalpels, where a PSA is very much a Swiss Army knife. It does everything. So it's way more complex. We're a billing tool away from an ERP solution. So it's a big beast just to try and work out if this is what I need for my business. Even if you heard great things online, it's just, it's hard to evaluate within a 30-day free period. So having someone there who's technical and nice is helpful. So typically it's well received. And you'd email and be like, hi there, can I help? You want to organise a walkthrough? And the answer is always typically, I would probably say 50-50 yes. Because if they are interested enough to look at the PSA and in the market and are looking at it seriously, they are happy to engage with someone to help them look through it.
But what you just explained there, it's about having the right person do that.
Oh,
first
yeah.
contact.
So we have, the sales guys at Halo are very technical. They're all technical. They are.
Yeah, they've all come through the service desk.
Yeah, correct. It's even me. I started off on 12 months on service desk, even though I had an implementation job previously and another role in a SaaS company before that. But I'd started off on the service desk, which was an adjustment for me, but I understood the purpose behind it. And I remember coming to my job interview at Halo, where I turned up in a 3-piece suit, which was definitely my first mistake, where the founder, Paul, was in a football t-shirt and some shorts.
We'll have to see you in we'll have to invite him back to see him in his three-piece suit.
I have never seen him take that jean coat off.
No.
Never seen it.
That is definitely a Wigan thing to call it a jean coat. Everyone this side of the M25 calls it a denim jacket.
Yeah, but that's just, it's never come off your back, has it?
No, I just live in this. I should buy some more clothes, really. I don't really buy into the sartorial side of life, clothes are just to cover my bits, really. We've gone right off the tangent here.
Thank God they're covering his bits.
We've got to leave that bit in as well, I think. Some balding, not really. I've got a full head of hair. I found out recently when I started buying hats, especially when you partner with McLaren, every time you see them, they'll give you a hat. So it's like, oh, I like hats, I'll start wearing hats. And then everyone I speak to now thinks I'm balding. I'm like, no, I just realised anyway.
Maybe you should try and match the hat to some socks or something, so you've got like a matching thing going on all the time.
Maybe you can help me, Mitt. We'll have a couple drinks
later.
later.
Yeah. We'll get Google up in a minute and buy some socks.
To London, yeah.
Yeah, buying some
Can't wait
socks.
for that. We'll record that night out and put it somewhere. No
socks and champagne. No, that could be like a whole evening.
Socks and champagne. That's definitely our podcast. Instead of drinking coffee in the morning, we'll have some champagne in the afternoon and start talking about our takes on the industry.
So let's put it back into talking about what
how dare you? You're the one who took it off the rails.
Let's talk about. So you've got technical people that are doing sales at Halo.
Sure.
How do you get those guys to be effective?
Sure. So there's a training program. So basically, with the Halo team, there's only about 20 people globally that sell HaloPSA. Mm-hmm. It is, as Halo has been, privately owned, and we're never going to hire an army of people. Which is probably if you were aiming for a certain target or quarterly goals that are P stockholders, it'd be a totally different attitude. But I would openly say that the PSA function, also the sales function at HaloPSA, is probably not super mature. It is basically we have a team of people who go through a training program, that go through the service desk, they know the product, and then they are chatty, they can interact, they're interpersonal. And then they basically come into a team and they start to form smaller teams where the requirements are less, the sales cycle is shorter, and they're typically similar from person to person. And when you start getting north of a $10 million ARR MSP or whatever that number looks like, it suddenly starts to deviate. And when you get right up into the big numbers, each process is a year sales cycle in some scenarios where we're going through every single part of the business. We're looking at all their interactions. We're mapping them. And it's a big shift in a very high impact scenario. So how do we get them to where they need to be? Training program. It's, when Halo has this journey where we're trying to build the best in breed PSA solution. That's all we want to do. It becomes, and I would argue that, the PSA market is pretty uncompetitive. So it very much becomes just enthusiasm transfer. So if you've been doing this,
it's that energy.
Yeah, agreed. And that's the energy. As you're buying, it's enthusiasm transfer. It's, I've got this really cool thing. Let me show it to you. And then over time, as they gain a lot of experience, it will become very much how, like we talked about at the very beginning, where you can lean into sort of, a point of expertise. You're listening to me because I'm an expert and I have this really cool thing that I know a lot about. So that's the journey. That will take 3 to 5 years, depending on the person. And it's a long burn. There's no team of BDRs calling up externally. There's no product specialist. Oh, for this part, we'll go to this person. That part, we'll go to that person. There's one person who centrally manages the conversation. It is the single person that goes from start to finish. And I'm part of a community now that has all of our channels on the MSP space, all their sales leaders, and they look at me like, "What are you doing?" But for us, it's working right now. Will it change in the future? Maybe, but that's what it looks like today.
And what are the sort of qualities of the people that you're looking for?
And that commercial awareness.
Well, I think it's like, what are the qualities and capabilities you're looking into for someone to become
Sure.
part of that sales team?
Yeah, I think it's just extroversion and competency. Being interpersonal is very important, because I think you're going to go through. It's a long sales cycle for some software. Most SaaS software out there is a month. RMMs are around 3-4, depending on the size of the deal. HaloPSA will be between, depending on the size of the deal, between 3 to some deals are going on north of a year. So you're going to be spending a lot of time with them. So you need to be, you're going to get to know them, whether you like it or not. You get to know them as part of the process, which is great. But it means that it's a requirement on the person that they need to be able to be interactive, and they can be introverted, but they can't be super introverted, and they need to have something about them. So that's the style of people that we go for. But I mean, we would, in terms of bringing it back to MSPs, that point of expertise does link between the two. You can get away with that for a little while, but when as you're talking about here, going through that maturity where you need to have a whole sales cycle and a function, is a different skill set. And you can take someone who is technical and can talk and not have a sales background, put them in that position like we do at Halo, and they can fly. So you don't have to go out to market and get a BDR and a BDM. You can if you want to, but I think Halo's a proof that you maybe don't need to do that exactly, but having the right instruments in place.
But you need those key bits, don't you?
Agreed.
You can't teach them to have communication
Correct.
skills.
Yeah, there needs to be some business acumen, and that stuff has to be taught, because, I mean, some people have, come from a background where that's been a thing. Some teams who have just been focusing on academics and graduates coming through won't have that. So you need to teach them how to negotiate. And typically, if you do a good job demonstrating the value, typically on the other end, the negotiation isn't super brutal, but sometimes it is, and so that's where you need to deliver those skills. I'm not sure if you think any different.
Yeah, I think it's key that they've got to come with those key bits within themselves. You've got to find the right people, and then you teach them the skills. But if you haven't got those items that you talked about, you're looking for them, mate. You can't change that, can't you? You can't change somebody that's going to stand in the middle of the room and be energetic about something.
Yeah.
You've got to come with that to start off with.
What did your sales cycle look like at Scalable?
So yeah, Scalable's a really interesting model because a lot of our leads come to us.
Yeah.
So we're sort of understanding the match. It's more about a match versus us going finding leads.
Sure.
With the MSP, completely different. So when I was in the MSP world, that was completely different. You was being put into a situation where you was calling somebody out of the blue, for instance. They're not really wanting your call, and you're trying to create a conversation. You're trying to create a need or look for a pain. So I've done a lot of outbound calling, a lot of direct marketing campaigns, but you're being disruptive more than anything. You're trying to find some pain, and then you're trying to take them down a journey. And that journey I'm seeing is definitely getting longer and longer because people are in contracts.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So to the pair of you, I mean, when you're going after new business, are you going after greenfield clients who never had an MSP before? Are you going after ones who had an MSP previously or currently?
So I think the market is as such now that everybody has pretty much had an MSP or has an MSP, unless they are a startup business. But they may have come from a company that has an MSP. So typical MSPs are looking between, well, their sweet spot is maybe 20 to 40 employees, like who they're looking for. But let's say they take on anyone from 5 to 150 employees. So in that sector, generally speaking, everyone's had an MSP.
Or internal IT.
Or internal IT, but mainly MSPs. Attrition rates, generally, I did a survey of about 100 MSPs, I think in November last year, between 5 and 7%. So they lose between 5 and 7% of their customers a year. Some are saying that's a lot higher now, that there's a lot of these much bigger MSPs, but that's typically at 5-7%. So it's a switch market, a bit like banking. You switch from one bank to the other, but the thing is, no one ever switches, right? It's like the better the devil you know. So there have to be trigger factors. That's why I call them trigger factors, where they're like, this has got so bad I need to move. And it's normally down to something like service, like having bad service, having bad relationship maybe with the person, having no relationship, or getting the wrong advice. Those are typically the trigger factors that you see in the marketplace. But yeah, that's what I see out there.
So that's a good point, actually. So let's say we're going back 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a meeting with Mitt. It's our first time together.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's caviar and 3-piece suits around the places or something. Maybe not back then, you tell me.
Never was really into caviar, but if I was, there would be. Yeah.
But so you would sit down, and what would the conversation look like? So if you have an incumbent MSP, you're going after pain, you're talking about relationship. Why would they move to you over someone else?
So I think for me, and this is what I told most of our sales team, there are two things you need to get out of in that new business meeting. And the two things is you need to demonstrate these two things to the other person, the other side of the table. Number one is you need to be able to build rapport with them. If you can build rapport and they like you and you like them, that's half the job done. The second thing you need to do is actually show some form of intelligence, right? So that you know what you're talking about. So it could be like an issue they're talking. I mean, a common one was like back in the day, my Outlook's running really slow. And there was a thing that I used to talk about. Well, in your Outlook, how do you store your emails? So we talk about how people are putting their email. Oh, I just leave everything in my inbox. Well, that's a problem because every time you're clicking on that email, it's listing the hundreds of thousands of emails that are in there, which is slowing down your Outlook. Second thing is, how do you know as a business owner that you're actually responding or replying to those emails? Oh, I don't. There's too many of them. So then I'd kind of teach them something that I got taught by...
Sure. So you're leading with value, basically.
Yeah, I teach them that basically what you should have is another folder called Processed under your inbox. Once you've dealt with it, move it into your Process folder. Then you know that you've dealt with it. And it was things like that where you could show a little bit of intelligence to make them think, oh, this IT company can maybe help me, not just baffle me with all this stuff. They know what they're talking about.
And
I think there's an extra point there as well. We talked about this earlier, about too many times I see in the sales process that we give them something to do. And so what I teach a lot of people is we that's our last resort. We don't want to give the prospect something to do. Because as soon as you give them something, you're delaying the whole process. So you want to make it so that conversation isn't then, you now do something for me. It's, I'm going to do something for you.
I mean, yeah, I totally agree. I think, putting the buck on them when it's probably not the forefront of their mind would totally delay a sales process. That makes total sense. But I guess, did you guys ever get into like, oh, give me this small project, and if it doesn't, work out after a period of time, or is it always like no, you're committing up front?
You can't do that.
Have you ever seen that before?
I have. I wouldn't do it. So there's a couple of reasons. The first thing is that when you're going into someone's company, you want to take over the IT support. That's your gateway to everything else. You're not going to be able to sell a small project if someone else is managing their IT, because it's going to cause you a lot of pain. So a displacement technique I used to use back in the day, like IT companies would go in and say, we need to audit all of your stuff. We need to look at your server. We need to log into this. We need to do this. And I just say to them, look, you probably know there are things wrong with your IT at the moment, right? That's why I'm here. So what's the point of us upsetting your IT provider, us logging into all your stuff, ending up in a blame game and delaying all of this, when we know that there probably are things wrong and we'll find them during our process? We don't need to go and upset your IT company right now. We don't need to waste your time. The reason they're doing that, the other IT companies, they want to come back with a list of stuff that's wrong to make themselves look clever. But you probably know this thing's wrong, right? And they're like, yeah, okay, there's no point doing that. So I would basically put little traps and bombs in for IT companies all the way along the way.
And that's a great example, though, of giving them something to do. Because what you're doing, if you're saying I need to do an audit up front, well, the first thing I need is all the passwords and the details to achieve that audit. So now you've got an action as a prospect to go and find those details.
That'd be huge.
And speak to an IT company and come up with a reason why you need those passwords. But actually, I've just given you a load of actions to do.
Yeah.
I suppose these are barriers, right?
Yeah, the barriers.
So in your world, a barrier could be like, well, you can't trial my software until I've seen this a lot, like with vendors, don't know why they do it. You can't trial my software until I have spoken to you. Well, if it's, I want to muck around with it. I just want to click on things, do things. Why do I need to speak to someone, spend an hour?
Yeah.
That's just an instant barrier, a bit like what you're talking about. I've seen some MSPs are like, well, and I was one of these back in the day, our conversion rate when we get people back into our office to come and look at it is way high. So that's going to be part of our sales process. You have to come back into my office.
Yeah.
And I ended up, I've told the story a bit, I ended up paying, I think, $8,000 US dollars to get consultancy from an Australian chap called Michael Pollard. Matthew Pollard, his name is. He wrote a book called Introvert's Edge. Had 2 1-hour sessions with him, going through my sales process. And he said, Mitt, but say after the first time someone's met you, they want to sign up. Have they got to come back? Yeah, they've got to come back into my office. I want to show them my screens that I've got. They're like, but say if another IT company came in and they liked him and they allowed them to sign up then and there.
Yeah.
So I didn't think about that. So we changed our sales process ever so slightly, and we got a 20% conversion uplift.
Amazing. So like, literally went there with the document at hand if they wanted it.
Yeah, ready to go. It was electronic, so you would just go there and we'd get it
No
done.
fax.
Actually, the first deal I did was by fax, but yeah, thereafter we kind of caught up and started doing stuff by DocuSign. I think it was we used to use.
I mean, that's a great technique to just to not get bogged down in the sales process, to go straight for the win. I love that. That's a great idea.
And I think it's like make things better. So you do all of these things in your business, whatever they may be, iterate them, make them better, look at them. What could I do differently? Like you were talking about sending out emails to people, and you got to a state where you had very small messages, very succinct, very sort of personable. Probably took you a few times of iterating that and making it better
a year
to get it. But I know people that send the same stuff out. You know, they've been doing it for years, and they're like, well, I'm unhappy with my open rate. It's like 15%, but it's above industry. I was like, you want to get a 40% open rate? What are you mucking about for? Just make it better. Spend some time.
Yeah, I think that's...
Don't do new things. Stop doing new things. Make the old things better first.
New shiny toys.
New shiny things.
That's intrinsic.
I mean, you were talking about all that software earlier. I bet loads of people listening to this are like, write down that software. I'm gonna go onto that,
Google,
look at this, and look at this, and download
There's
that.
a link
and
below
get that.
my referral. No, I'm joking, not really.
We'll put the links in anyway.
Yeah, it'd be 20% just to put my PayPal. No, not really. But yeah, no, there's loads of standard ways, and I think people talk about like LinkedIn, InMail, and stuff, but I still think email is king. I agree. When you can, especially if you have a lower number of leads. I mean, the question I would ask you guys, I mean, how many opportunities would you typically give to a single salesperson? Would you have 10, 100, 50, 5? What would be a normal rate? We go, we need to hire someone else now. Or
I think the caveat is a couple of things first. So the first thing is, my belief is until you get to 5 million US, or about 4 million UK, let's say, that the owner should be doing all of the new business sales. So any net new opportunity for a new client should go to the owner, because they're going to be the best person to go and A, qualify that lead, and B, win it.
Yeah.
Because they're going to understand about business, they're going to have passion about it, they are going to win it compared to anyone else you can get in. And this is proven, there's stats on it, right? Mm-hmm. Owners typically would release account management first to free up that time to do it. But generally speaking, I think you could run with like 10 to 15, maybe 20 things on the go at once. So to 20
leads and ops. Yeah.
So 20 ops that you've got on the go at once is probably what you can run with some support with somebody.
Sure. I mean, there'll be a lot of people who are listening to this or watching this and thinking,
I want to lead.
Well, where did he get that denim jacket from?
Yeah. No one's thinking.
It's Levi. Actually, I found it in the back of it. I might as well tell the story now.
Yeah.
I found it. I bought a car back in 10 years ago. It was in the boot of a 5 Series, just left there. It was someone had left their jacket. Perfect fit. Kept it ever since. And
so you didn't even buy the jacket?
Didn't even buy it. How thrifty is that?
You didn't even buy the jean jacket?
I'm very cost effective.
I mean, when you do come down for champagne and socks in London, I think we could probably sell that on Vinted.
Are you getting into Vinted as well? Apparently, there's a big lift in men getting into Vinted, and it's because of that other halves.
Yeah, so actually, my other half
here we go.
has recently. I've lost a little bit of weight, and I
you look great, by the way.
Thank you.
What's your secret?
I'll come back to that. And I've basically got a lot of clothes that don't fit anymore. So I've kind of resisted throwing them away, because I've spent a lot of money on some of these clothes, and I kind of like them. But she's basically sold them all on Vinted. But some things, she only sells it for like a £5 or £7, and I'm like, that costs so much. How can you sell it for £5? But I've had to get rid of a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And I think I think it is the other halves to get into, because like my other half will I mean, I come back from malarkey I'm doing, and I'll have like a gilet or something, and I've got a mound of these things. They just give them to you. I'm like, okay, great. I don't need 7 gilets. I've got one pair of arms.
I mean, you only ever wear one jacket. Why do you need
Exactly.
7 gilets?
These are my PJs as well, Darren.
Yeah.
You're digging into the jacket today.
I reckon we should get Darren one. I think he obviously.
I
I think he's clearly got some sort of FOMO, or he's
I'd love one.
jealous of a jacket, or
I think that'll be in the
maybe
next
send him a
episode.
link when you put it on Vinted, because.
But yeah, anyway, but there's Vinted is getting big, and I think out of all the three of us, I think you need a jacket the most, Darren. So I'm expecting to see.
Yeah, I am feeling left out, to be honest.
Just talking about Vinted, why do you think it's so successful?
Because women will do 60+% of commercial decisions, and it's so for me personally, I'm sure other men get this as well, when they're working at home remotely, and I would be disturbed to go and answer the door because there's another ASOS or another Vinted thing that's come through the post or whatever it is, that I'm having to pick it up and go and collect it. And I think it's that avenue. I've got, what is this thing? And then downloading an app and being a tech savvy millennial plus, it's finding its way. And I've got loads of old clothes, and I like a couple of quid.
So in terms of their business model,
It's solving a problem, isn't it?
you've got lots of things like that. You've got eBay, you could put it on, or the rest of it. Like, why do people use Vinted and not eBay?
Because it's stuff that's boutique that you won't find elsewhere. I don't know. I think it's just that they've made the buying experience easier. I think if you wanted to look at this, look at you turning this conversation into value. But yeah, absolutely. It's they've made the ease of buying stuff. The whole process is just so much more streamlined.
So I know a limited amount about it, but I think here's a couple of things, right? One, it's frictionless. So whereas stuff like eBay, you've got postings one by one. With Vinted, you could just literally wait and pull up 10 or 15 things and stick them in a post box somewhere. The second thing is it doesn't cost anything. So it versus eBay, who have had to change recently, but they don't charge a margin or a commission or a percentage, whereas a platform like eBay does. Although now eBay have now changed, I think in the last couple of months, and they sell all their stuff for free. But that's like an interesting thing of a shift of the business model, which is happening in a lot of MSPs.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to reinvent, you have to change to make things better. Let's talk a bit about systems that people use, because everybody has some type of system to manage sales, right? And what I want to get from this next bit of this conversation is just understanding, like, what are the best practices you've seen MSPs do to make sure that A, they're tracking said opportunities, and B, they're actually able to move them along in the sales process?
Yeah, sure. So I think it sounds trivial, especially for technology-focused people, but having a CRM, logging opportunities, lead to opportunity management, keeping in contact, keeping the velocity, keeping the energy going on those leads, qualifying them properly. Standard structure like that I have come across when in a previous life doing onboardings a lot more, which needs to be present to properly sort of structure and deliver an effective sales cycle. Not sure what you've seen, Darren, or...
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, especially when it's principle-led selling, what we see is lots of gaps in that. Yeah, and some salespeople as well. We don't want to follow a process, but actually following a process, having the right data in the system, having the right milestones and stages, whatever you want to call them, but literally just having a system that we can actually track data. And then the key thing is we need to track it. We need to be having a weekly meeting, for instance. We need to have a weekly meeting where we're talking about opportunities, we're talking about pipeline, we're talking about anything that we can move along, but it just creates that accountability of where we're going with these prospects. Because we know that we need touch points, and we know that the biggest loss of a sale is people not following up.
I think it's also important to make sure you're qualifying, and the information you qualify and capture up front, because on the back end, the reporting for seeing where you're winning deals and type of deals that you're winning, best fits, really happy, profitable customers, understanding where they came from and how they were generated will pay you dividends over time.
So you said a word there, velocity. So like moving those deals along at pace. Like, what are the tips and tricks that you've got or you've seen people do to move those things along? Yeah,
we spoke about it a bit today, where we, taking the work out of the customer's hand. So, when we're doing HaloPSA and we're selling software, the evaluation, it's not for people to go and jump into that box of treasure and go and dig around and try and put things together to understand if it delivers value. It's about showing them how it works, showing them an end-to-end flow, how it could look in their business, what they have today, So from configuration sessions to following up, to taking the work out of the customer's hand, meeting them where they are as well when possible, it also adds a lot of value. Stuff like that I've seen over the years, which really adds the velocity of a sale and reduces the sales cycle.
Okay, so rhythm, Darren. That's one of the things you mentioned, like having a regular rhythm for the sales function. What have you seen, like in the best performing MSPs? What do they do?
Yeah, so internally, you've got to have a rhythm around meetings. So actually having a weekly meeting, talking about opportunities, making sure they're getting pushed along. But actually, as a prospect rhythm, I think it depends on where they are. You know, if it's a really hot lead, we want to be touch points at least once a week. If it's a longer life cycle, we want to spread that out a bit. We don't want to be irritable to the prospect, but equally we want to make sure we are still touching base. They know where we are and that we're available and we're pushing the conversation down a certain floor.
That leads to a good conversation around tonality, where I really feel like the idea of a gentle nudge is really king, where when you're touching base, it's not a really hard and abrasive email. It's a short email, which sounds like you're trying to help, you're trying to be useful. And that sort of connection really, doesn't sound like you're delivering a lot of value from your side, but it's an easy read for the client. So when you think about it from their point of view, where they're in the middle of their busy week, and the idea of them being able to just see your name, see your logo, how's this going? Can I help, Tim? That sort of approach I found over the years has just yielded the best results. Just being really human and then just trying to do what you can is what I would suggest.
Let's talk about new prospect inquiries. It may not be the same in Halo because it sounds like a lot of the stuff comes from software trials.
Yeah, correct.
But in the MSP world, Dan, obviously you work with sort of 50, 60 MSPs at the moment. What do you see as the time to response when these companies get a new lead? What would you say the average is?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that a little bit, haven't we? About when you get a new lead, who's going to answer the call, who's going to answer the actual lead, and the faster the better. What we see is there isn't a structure of how we actually get these leads. And because we're potentially only getting a couple of leads, we've not put a lot of time into it. But actually, the speed is the essence. If I bring it back to my world, in Scalable, we've got WhatsApp on our website. And people comment so much about the speed of response to that WhatsApp, and how other people aren't doing that speed. And that typically wins us a good majority of the deals. So it's about having that structure of what's going to happen when they press a button, whether that be a contact form, whether there be a phone call into the business. Yeah. You've got to have what next.
I love that. I think that also another thing that we've seen that works quite well is the idea of having like a Calendly, where you have the ability to book a meeting from the website there and then. Adds a lot of value because it's not like a contact form. Oh, let's have a chat, book a time. You give them up front, you deliver that transparency into your calendar. Halo also does this as well. I think it's coming later this year, but you'll be able to book a meeting directly from the website to have that consultation where you can get an initial contact. That adds. When that first came out, I was a massive naysayer. I was like, why do I need this? People want to have a person interact, but offering the option, especially for just to demonstrate technical capability, I think that's something that I don't see enough of. It really does help speed up the first contact to the first real conversation.
I think that speed in every part of the journey. You see so many people that they leave it that long that now there's not that burning question anymore. When they've got the pain, attack that pain. You leave that a week, they've now got a new pain and they've moved on. So you've got to be there when they want you to be there. That's the key.
Yeah, I think one of the things I spoke about earlier was that in my MSP I used to own, we used to dominate SEO. So we would see a high proportion of the leads, and it would be 1 month someone would put the lead in. 3 months later, they'd forgotten they'd been on their website and they put their contact details in again because, like you say, to what's top of mind has to stay top of mind in order for you to push things along. Or back to your comment around velocity, right? And it's not just for new business stuff. It could be for account management as well. Like when you're going in, talking to a customer and saying they need to do X, Y, Z, if you then leave it 2 months, well, they're going to think, or a month, they're going to think, well, it's probably not that important. I don't even need to do it because you're not actually following up and making sure they do it. So guys, thank you very much today. We've heard some great things. Let's just wrap this up and let's go with what's everybody's key takeaway from our conversation. Tim.
I'd probably say the key takeaway is to have the right technologies in place and just to keep a level of willpower and relentlessness. That results won't come straight away, but if you have the right strategy, they will come.
My key takeaways is put the time into it. You know, it's a difficult place when you're not used to selling, and you've got to put time into the strategies, the process, the technology. Otherwise, it's not going to change. You know, keep putting time into technical isn't going to build your business.
And I think my key takeaway is really make things better. So before starting something new, get the existing things that you've tried up to a certain level, like 80-90% of where they need to be. Keep on iterating them, make them better. They will deliver results.